She thought it was just another rainy Tuesday at the diner until a billionaire walked in, setting off a chain of events that would change her life forever. Clara Evans was no stranger to long days and even longer nights. At 27, she had spent the better part of a decade working as a waitress at Sonny's Diner, a cozy little spot nestled in the heart of Chicago. The diner wasn't glamorous, but it had character. Faded checkered tiles, a jukebox that played classics from the 80s, and regulars who greeted Clara like family. For her, it was more than a job, it was her lifeline, helping to pay for her younger brother Liam's college tuition and keep a roof over their heads. Despite her circumstances, Clara had a way of making everyone feel like the center of the universe. Her quick wit and kind demeanor made her popular among the patrons, but not everyone appreciated her outspokenness, especially not Victor Blake, the diner's ambitious manager. Victor wasn't a bad person, Clara often told herself, just someone who valued profits over people. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. The diner was unusually quiet, with only a handful of customers scattered across its booths. Clara stood behind the counter, wiping it down for what felt like the 100th time when the door jingled. She glanced up expecting to see a regular like Mr. Jenkins, who always ordered black coffee and blueberry pie. Instead, a man walked in wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face and sunglasses that barely hid his identity. Clara froze. She had seen that face countless times before, splashed across news headlines and TV interviews. Ethan Hayes, the tech mogul who had built a billion-dollar company before the age of 30. Recently, though, Ethan had been in the news for less flattering reasons: accusations of mismanagement, rumors of lawsuits, and media frenzy surrounding his every move. The weight of it all showed in his posture as he slipped into a corner booth, shoulders hunched, doing his best to remain invisible. Clara noticed the stir his arrival caused almost immediately. A couple at a nearby table exchanged whispers, their phones held at suspicious angles. A man near the window discreetly began filming. Clara sighed, sensing trouble brewing. Without hesitation, she approached Ethan's table, her steps light but purposeful. "Welcome to Sonny's," she said, her tone warm and professional. "Would you like a moment with the menu?" Ethan looked up, surprised by her calm demeanor. There was no trace of recognition in her voice, no gawking or unnecessary fuss. Just a waitress treating him like any other customer. "Just coffee," he said, his voice tired. "Black, and if it's possible, somewhere quiet to work for an hour." "Coming right up," Clara said with a small smile. "And don't worry, I'll make sure no one bothers you." As she walked back to the counter, her sharp eyes caught the growing curiosity of the other patrons. Clara made a mental note to keep a close watch on Ethan's table. This wasn't going to be just another rainy Tuesday. She could feel it. Behind her, Victor emerged from the back office, his eyes narrowing as they locked onto Ethan. Clara could already see the gears turning in his head, plotting how to turn this unexpected visit into a marketing goldmine. She braced herself, knowing that protecting Ethan's privacy was about to become a lot harder, and potentially much more complicated. And so, with a calm resolve that masked her racing thoughts, Clara prepared herself for what would be a day she would never forget. Clara's intuition was right. Things were about to escalate. As she set Ethan's coffee on the table with a reassuring smile, she could feel the subtle tension in the diner building. A woman seated 2 booths away whispered loudly to her companion, "Isn't that Ethan Hayes? The tech guy? He's been all over the news." The other diner nodded, already snapping photos under the guise of checking her phone. Clara's jaw tightened. She had seen situations like this before, though never with a celebrity of Ethan's stature. The curiosity always started as whispers, but quickly snowballed into chaos. She decided to act before the buzz spiraled out of control. Circling the room, Clara calmly but firmly approached the most conspicuous offenders. "Excuse me," she said to the couple taking pictures. "I'm going to have to ask you not to photograph other guests. Sonny's values privacy for everyone who walks through the door." One of them frowned, looking like they were about to argue, but Clara's unwavering expression made them think twice. Reluctantly, they put their phones away. As she continued her rounds, Victor stepped out from the back, his sharp eyes scanning the diner until they landed on Ethan. Clara could practically see the dollar signs light up in his gaze. He stormed over to her at the counter, his voice low but laced with urgency. "Do you know who that is?" he hissed, gesturing toward Ethan's booth. "Yes," Clara replied coolly, And he clearly doesn't want to be bothered. Victor smirked, leaning in conspiratorially. You're missing the point, Clara. Do you realize what kind of publicity this could bring us? If we post a photo of Ethan Hayes enjoying coffee here, Sonny's will be trending in no time. Clara shook her head, her voice firm but measured. Victor, he came here to get away from all that. The diner's reputation should come from how we treat people, not from exploiting them. Victor's smirk vanished, replaced by a scowl. You don't make those decisions, Clara. Do what you're told, or find another job. Her stomach clenched, but she didn't waver. With all due respect, Victor, I won't harass a guest for the sake of a social media post. That's not the kind of place Sonny's should be. The exchange grew louder, drawing the attention of the other diners, and of Ethan, who glanced up from his laptop, his brows furrowed in curiosity. Victor's face reddened as his voice rose, though he kept it just low enough to avoid a full-blown scene. If you don't want to follow orders, you're fired. Pack your things and get out. Clara's heart sank, but she stood her ground. 5 years of hard work, late nights and early mornings, all gone in an instant. Yet she couldn't bring herself to regret her decision. As she untied her apron, a quiet voice interrupted the tension. "Excuse me," Ethan said, his tone calm but commanding. "Is there a problem here?" Victor turned, startled, his demeanor shifting immediately. "Not at all, Mr. Hayes, just a minor staffing issue." Ethan's piercing gaze moved between Clara and Victor. "I saw what happened," he said, his voice steady. "This young woman was doing her job with integrity, something I don't see nearly enough of these days. And you're firing her for it?" The diner went silent. Every customer seemed to be holding their breath, waiting for what would happen next. Victor froze, his face shifting from red to pale under Ethan Hayes' sharp scrutiny. It was clear he hadn't expected his actions to attract this level of attention, especially from the man at the center of it all. The room was silent, the hum of the diner's jukebox, the only sound as every pair of eyes locked on the unfolding confrontation. I didn't mean to cause any trouble," Victor stammered, forcing an awkward smile. "It's just a misunderstanding." Ethan raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "A misunderstanding? I watched this woman protect my privacy, handle disruptive customers, and treat me with more professionalism than I've seen in boardrooms. And your response is to punish her." Victor opened his mouth to respond, but Ethan's sharp tone cut him off. "Let me be clear. What Clara did was not only the right thing, but exactly what every business should strive for. You should be rewarding employees like her, not firing them." Clara stood by the counter, her apron folded neatly in her hands. Her cheeks burned with a mix of embarrassment and frustration, but also a spark of pride. Ethan had noticed, really noticed, not just her actions, but her principles. "Sir, Victor stuttered again, but Ethan waved him off. "Enough," Ethan said, his voice calm but resolute. He turned to Clara. "What's your name?" "Clara Evans," she replied, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. Ethan nodded, pulling his phone from his pocket. His fingers moved quickly over the screen, and within moments, he looked up again. "Clara, I'm looking for someone with integrity and quick decision-making to join my team. How would you feel about coming to work for me?" Clara blinked, stunned. I'm sorry. Are you serious?" Ethan smiled faintly, showing the first hint of warmth since he walked into the diner. "Completely. I don't say things I don't mean. I've already sent your name to my HR department." He turned his phone around, showing an email on the screen. "Starting salary, $90,000, full benefits. You've earned this." The diner erupted into murmurs. Customers exchanged wide-eyed glances, some pulling out their phones to capture the moment. Victor looked as though the ground might swallow him whole. Clara hesitated, her mind racing. Could she leave the life she'd known for 5 years so suddenly? But when she glanced at Ethan's face, calm, certain, and full of respect, she felt something she hadn't in years. Hope. "Yes," she said, her voice stronger this time. "Yes, I'd be honored." Ethan smiled again, then turned back to Victor. "As for you in this diner, I'll make sure people hear about how you treat your employees. Don't expect them to be kind." With that, he left cash on the table for his coffee and nodded to Clara. "My office will be in touch." He walked out, leaving stunned silence in his wake. Clara looked around the diner, her home for so long, now tainted by the man who had just fired her. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in years, she felt like the future held something better. The next morning, Clara woke up to the buzz of her phone. Notifications poured in, texts, emails, and social media mentions lighting up her screen. Ethan Hayes' name was trending on every platform, and Clara's name had been swept into the whirlwind of attention. Her hands trembled as she read his tweet. Witnessed an incredible act of integrity yesterday at a small diner in Chicago. A worker stood up for what's right, even at the cost of her job. Proud to welcome Clara Evans to the Hayes Hope Initiative. Good people deserve great opportunities. Underneath, thousands of comments praised Clara's actions. Many shared their own stories of us working in service jobs, of being overlooked and undervalued. Some called her a hero. Others called for boycotts of Sonny's Diner. Clara's head spun as the phone buzzed with calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Among them was a message from Ethan's assistant confirming her first day at the Hayes Hope Initiative and providing details for her onboarding. By noon, Clara found herself stepping into a sleek downtown skyscraper, the headquarters of the Hayes Hope Initiative. The lobby alone felt like a world apart from the diner. Polished floors, walls adorned with photos of community projects funded by Ethan's foundation, and a receptionist who greeted Clara warmly as though she were already part of the family. "Welcome, Ms. Evans," the receptionist said with a smile. "Mr. Hayes will meet you shortly." Clara was led to a bright, open office space overlooking the city skyline. Ethan stood by the window, his back to her, but he turned as she entered. "Clara," he said with a genuine smile, "welcome to the team." Her heart raced, but she managed a grateful, "Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I can't tell you what this means to me." "Call me Ethan," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "You've earned this. I've read your file. 5 years at Sonny's, supporting your brother through college, managing a thankless job with grace and professionalism. That's the kind of person we need here." As they discussed her role, Ethan explained how she'd be working on outreach programs, connecting with communities in need, and ensuring the foundation's projects stayed aligned with its mission. By the end of the day, Clara was introduced to her new colleagues, all of whom greeted her warmly. She felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, something she hadn't experienced in years. Meanwhile, back at Sonny's Diner, things were falling apart. Victor's attempts to spin the incident in his favor backfired spectacularly. Videos of the confrontation, captured by customers, circulated online, painting him as the villain. The diner's reviews plummeted, and most of the staff walked out in protest. Clara, however, had no time to dwell on Victor's downfall. As she settled into her new role, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. That evening, sitting in her small apartment, Clara couldn't help but smile. The day had been a whirlwind, but it was a dream she never dared to hope for. Tomorrow, she would wake up to a new chapter of her life, a life she had earned through integrity and courage. 1 week later, Clara stood in her new office at the Hayes Hope Initiative, still trying to absorb the whirlwind changes in her life. Her workspace, bright, spacious, and overlooking Chicago's iconic skyline, felt like something out of a dream. On her desk sat a simple card in elegant script. "Thank you for reminding me that integrity is invaluable. Welcome to the team. Ethan Hayes." Clara traced her fingers over the words, reflecting on how much had changed in just a few days. A week ago, she was wiping down tables, wondering how she'd pay next month's rent. Now, she was part of an organization, making real change in the world. Her role at the Hayes Hope Initiative was more than just a job. It was a platform to create the kind of impact she'd always dreamed of. Clara quickly immersed herself in the foundation's work, helping to organize programs that provided scholarships for underprivileged students, set up housing for homeless families, and fund educational initiatives across the country. Her dedication and natural leadership skills didn't go unnoticed. Within days, her colleagues were turning to her for advice and ideas. Clara had gone from a waitress to a leader, proving that integrity and hard work could open doors to opportunities she'd never imagined. Meanwhile, the fallout for Sonny's Diner was swift and severe. Videos of the confrontation between Clara and Victor went viral, painting Victor as the epitome of poor leadership Social media exploded with outrage, and customers began boycotting the diner. Reviews on every platform plummeted, with former patrons expressing disappointment and anger over how Clara had been treated. Victor's attempts to defend himself only made things worse. Interviews where he claimed he had acted in the diner's best interest were met with public ridicule, especially after Ethan Hayes himself responded online, reiterating Clara's integrity and professionalism. As the diner's reputation crumbled, Victor was forced to resign under mounting pressure from the owner and staff. By the time he stepped down, most of the employees had already quit, leaving the once busy establishment nearly empty. Clara, however, felt no satisfaction in Victor's downfall. When a journalist asked for her thoughts on his resignation, she simply said, "I hope it's a lesson for all of us about the importance of treating people with respect, no matter their role." Back at the Hayes Hope Initiative, Clara found herself becoming something of a symbol. Service workers from across the country reached out, sharing stories of their own struggles and moments of integrity. Clara made it her mission to uplift their voices, starting an initiative called the Dignity Project, which celebrated and supported workers in industries often overlooked. One evening, as Clara scrolled through messages of gratitude and encouragement, she posted her own reflection on social media. Life's biggest blessings often come disguised as ordinary moments. To every worker out there still waiting for your break, keep your integrity, keep your faith, and keep doing the right thing. The world needs more of you. The post went viral almost instantly, with thousands of likes, shares, and comments flooding in. It became clear to Clara that her story was no longer just about her. It was about every person who had ever felt unseen or undervalued, but chose to stand firm in their principles. That night, Clara drove home in her new hybrid car, a thoughtful gift from the Hayes Hope Initiative, reflecting on how far she'd come. She passed by Sonny's Diner on her way, its parking lot nearly empty. Through the window, she could see Victor cleaning tables himself, the irony of his situation not lost on her. But Clara felt no malice, only hope that he had learned something valuable about humility and the power of treating others with dignity. As she parked in front of her apartment complex, though not for much longer, as she'd already started apartment hunting in a better neighborhood, Clara whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. She thought of her mother's words, "Integrity will take you further than any shortcut ever will." She thought of her younger brother, now finishing college thanks to her sacrifices, and of Ethan Hayes, who had seen something in her that she hadn't even seen in herself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities, but Clara felt ready. Her life had changed dramatically, but at her core, she was still the same person who believed in doing the right thing, no matter who was or wasn't watching. Because in the end, it wasn't luck or fame that had brought her here. It was integrity, courage, and a simple choice to stand up for what was right. And that, she knew, was something to be proud of.